It's the dictionary. Dictionary. It's the dictionary. Dictionary. It's the dictionary. Dictionary. It's the dictionary. Dictionary.
Hello, word nerds, and welcome to episode F27 of the podcast called The Dictionary. My name is Spencer Parks, and I hope that you are a little less sleepy than I am. Not yesterday, but the night before, I didn't get to bed till 1:15 a.m., because I flew back that night from a work trip, and we were diverted to Rockford, Illinois, coming into Chicago because the weather was so bad. We had like hurricane winds and crazy stuff, and so we had to go to Rockford and sit for about 2 hours, and then we flew back, and I got home so much later than I wanted to, and I'm still tired, like a whole couple days later. Okay, we are going to now get into the fantasy episode, because basically all of these words are kind of related to fantasy, but we got something else in here. So, the first word is fantasied or fantasied. F-A-N-T-A-S-I-E-D. Fanta. Who wants a Fanta? Fanta, fantasied. This is an adjective from 1561. Number 1, existing only in the imagination, and the synonym is fancied. Yeah, I remember we were talking about the word fancy and how you fancy a thing. You love it, but you also, it's all about what's in your head, what's in your imagination. So this thing that only exists in your head, what can we think about today now? Pies. I like to go to pies. I think of a pie filled with a mango pie. Has anybody ever made a mango pie? So that pie, mango pie, is fantasied because it's in my head. Number 2 is obsolete, and it is full of fancies or strange whims. Full of fancies. And what is a fancy? Well, I think it's just something in your head. I'm looking back at the noun of fancy. There's a lot of stuff, a notion, a whim, lots of things. But this part, strange whims. What is a strange whim? I'm just going to do this on a whim, and it's super strange. So it is fantasied. Okay. My sound effect today, bring. Next is fantasize with an S-I-S-E at the end, which is the British variation of fantasize spelled S-I-Z-E, and that is the good old American way to spell fantasize. Fantasize, that will be in this episode. I think it's coming up, right? Oh my gosh. Oh no, it's not the next word. It's almost the next word. Bring! Next is fantasist or fantasist. Noun from 1896. This is one who creates fantasias or fantasies. Well, we had fantasia in the previous episode. It's been many days since I recorded. What did this one say? Instrumental composition, so somebody creating one of those that doesn't have the strict form would be a fantasist. A work like a poem or play where the author's fancy roves unrestricted. The author is the fantasist. So the fantasist's fancy roves unrestricted in a fantasia. A fantasist also creates fantasies. And we're going to get into fantasy later. Bring! Here we go with fantasize with a Z at the end. This is a verb from 1926, starting with intransitive. To indulge in reverie, or also create or develop imaginative and often fantastic views or ideas, as in doing things I'd fantasized about in my sheltered childhood. And that is a quote from Diane Arbus. So Diane Arbus was, when she was a young person, she had a sheltered childhood, And so, sheltered is like You don't get to see the world. You don't get to learn about things. People are keeping all that from you. There's a whole big world out there to see and experience. But when you're sheltered, you're stuck in your shelter, physically and metaphorically. And so Diane was fantasizing about what's the rest of the world like out there. I want to get out from this shelter and see the world. I want to I'm fantasizing, thinking about these things, indulging in what's out there in your brain, right? It all comes back to the etymology, all comes back to what's going on in your mind and your imagination. What can you imaginate? Imaginate? And it's fantasize, you're fantasizing because you think it might be fantastic out there. Fantastic views or ideas. Transitive is to portray in the mind. The synonym is fancy, as in likes to fantasize herself as very wealthy. Sorry, I had a yawn that I held back there. I don't know if you could see it in my face. But yeah, I would like to take a nap, please. So fantasize herself as very wealthy. She's thinking about herself, portraying what would it be like if I were very wealthy. I would have 13 cars, and they would all be the same one. Just a little green car. That's what she wants when she fantasizes about her life. Portray, yeah, again, comes back to the mind. What's going on in your mind? Fantasizing. What do I fantasize about? I fantasize about making movies. I fantasize about, that's it. Fantasizer is a noun. Sizing you up. Okay. Bring. Phantasm is next. It is a variation of phantasm spelled with a PH, which for some reason that's the main one that we like to use. I guess you could just spell it with an F if you want. You need some extra letters. You need some space, so you throw in an F instead of a PH. Bring. Fantast. Fantast is next. This fantast word is fantastic. It is a noun from 1588. Number 1, the synonym is visionary. Again, it comes back to what's going on in your brain, your mind. What are you imagining? Visionary. You are thinking of things, so you are a fantast. I have never heard of this one. Number 2, a fantastic or eccentric person is a fantast. Wow. Number 3, the synonym is fantasist, which is what we had before, one who creates fantasias or fantasies. I guess if anybody who's just making up something in your mind, and maybe it comes out in some other way, poem, play, film, YouTube, whatever it is, you are a fantasist because you have thought of a thing in your mind and then you did it. Anything else? Not particularly interesting in the etymology. Maybe we're going to get more in this next word, bring, which is fantastic. First form. I have never thought about where this word comes from, but we're starting to get a lot of ideas, a lot of information from all these etymologies, and now there's so many words in the last few episodes that are connected. Fantastic, also fantastical. You can say that. Adjective from the 14th century. Number 1A, based on fantasy and also not real. Because fantasies are things that are just in your head and they may or may not be real, but something that's fantastic is just not real because it's all just like, oh, what if? Okay, 1B is conceived or seemingly conceived by unrestrained fancy. You cannot restrain the fancy. The fancy will not be locked down. 1C, so extreme as to challenge belief The synonym is unbelievable, but broadly it means exceedingly large or great. Physically large, whatever is large or great, it is fantastic. But yes, unbelievable. Um, I don't know if this is the one. We'll see what else we got coming up here. We got a couple more definitions for fantastic. Plus, we got a second form. But this unbelievable one is sort of how I think of this word, but not really. I think of fantastic as just being awesome, great, cool, amazing, splendiferous. But yes, it's not so extreme that it challenges my belief. But this might be a little bit of an older way to use. Maybe my parents' generation uses fantastic that way. I don't know. Number 2, marked by extravagant fantasy or extreme individuality. The synonym is eccentric. We talked about that word a while back. Eccentric, getting away from the center of a thing, because it's extravagant fantasy or extreme individuality. I don't really think that I have this. I don't have this. I'm not fantastic in this way. I don't think I have extreme individuality. I think I am very similar to a whole lot of people in the way I dress, in the way I look, in the way I think. I would like to think that I have extreme individuality, but I really don't think I do. Number 2, what does this say? Fantastic. I think you can't use fantastical here. You must use fantastic in number 3. The synonyms are excellent and superlative, as in a fantastic meal. This is definitely the one that I think most of us are familiar with. This is how we use this word. That meal was fantastic. I couldn't even imagine having a meal like that. It was the meal of my fantasies. I imagined it, but it was so amazing I could not even imagine it. That's how fantastic it was. Fantastically, is that a double L? I think so. Fantastic. No, it's fantasticality. Didn't know this was a word. Fantasticality is a noun. How would you use this in a sentence? That meal had so much fantasticality, I didn't even know what to do with myself. I figured it out. I will digest it. Fantasticalness is a noun, and is there any etymology in addition to the stuff that we've already learned in the last couple of episodes? Fantastique, lower Latin, fantasticus, from the Greek fantastikos, which means producing mental images. Yep, that's about what I imagined. From the Greek fantazine, which means to present to the mind. And yes, I remember 2 or 3 episodes ago we had something similar. And there's more of the word fancy. If it can be produced in the mind, then it is fantastic. Fantastic. This podcast came from my mind. It's still coming from my mind. I don't know what happens. I don't know what's going to happen, so it's fantastic. Technically, this is fantastic. There's some synonym information, though. Just a few words. Fantastic, bizarre, and grotesque mean conceived, made, or carried out without adherence to truth or reality. Ooh, let's dig into this. Let's see what this has to say. Fantastic may connote extravagance in conception or ingenuity of decorative invention, as in dreamed up fantastic rumors. Those rumors, they're not real. They came from my mind. I made them up. They are not real. I have invented them. They are not... there's no truth or reality. That's why they're rumors. That's what a rumor is. If it was reality, if it was real, we might think it was unreal, so we call it a rumor until it's confirmed, and then we cannot call it a rumor anymore. These rumors are fantastic. The best rumors. Bizarre applies to the sensationally strange and implies violence of contrast or incongruity of combination. That was an interesting blend of words. As in, a bizarre medieval castle in the heart of a modern city. And why is it bizarre? Applies the sensationally strange and implies violence of contrast and incongruity. So it's the juxtaposition of the castle in the modern city. That isn't. I would not have expected to see a 1,000-year-old castle in this modern 23rd century city. Amazing. It's so bizarre to see it. It's so strange and weird, and it feels untrue and not real, but it is. The third one, grotesque, may apply to what is conventionally ugly but artistically effective, or it may connote ludicrous awkwardness or incongruity, often with sinister or tragic overtones, as in grotesque statues on the cathedral. So these statues are conventionally ugly, but very well done artistically. Or there's ludicrous awkwardness. They look strange. They feel strange. Why are they there? I don't know. Maybe they're standing in a weird position. Maybe the statues are like this. And it's like, why would you make a statue in this position? What is this all about? Why are they holding a microphone in this statue? This really hurts. I'm going to stop now. Tragic overtones. Okay. Do we have another example? Yes, we do. It says, though grieving, she made a grotesque attempt at a smile. That is not the time that you want to be smiling. You don't want to force a smile when you're grieving. It probably is like, that's great. Another synonym. In addition, it's the word imaginary. Yeah. All right. Next word, because I think we talked about all the fantastic stuff except for the next word. Bring. It is the second form of fantastic, noun from 1598, and the synonym is the number 2 definition for the word eccentric. And so I guess you would be an eccentric, and you would be a fantastic, because it's a noun. Something is an eccentric or is a fantastic. I want to be a fantastic. How can I be a fantastic? Well, it doesn't work so well when you force it, I think. Right? I think if I were to, I think about like, oh, well, what if I dyed my hair and wore crazy things? But, you know, it doesn't really come naturally to me. I think it comes naturally to a lot of people. Maybe not everybody. Maybe that's a blanket statement I shouldn't make. But yes, I think that I am not a fantastic. I'm just not. Ring. It's not supposed to sound like a phone ring. Next is fantastically. Adverb from 1543. Number 1, in a fantastic manner. Any one of those fantastic ways. 2, to a fantastic degree. The synonym is extremely, as in fantastic, expensive clothes. They were the most expensive. To a very high degree, they were expensive. Those underpants are $8,000? Those are fantastic underpants. We got another word. It is fantastico. Fantastico, noun from 1596. We got a lot of 1500s in this episode. This is a ridiculously fantastic individual. I said that word funny. Individual. You individual, not only are you fantastic, but you are ridiculously fantastic. How did you get to be so fantastically silly? You are a fantastico. I don't want to be a fantastic. I want to be a fantastico. Where's this word from? It's Italian. It means fantastic. That's pretty much it. Fantastico. Fantastico. Next word, last word, bring. It's the first form of the word fantasy. You can also spell it with a PH. Fantasy or Phantasy. Noun from the 14th century. We're going to move the other forms of fantasy into the next episode. So, number 1 for fantasy, this is obsolete. The synonym is hallucination. Oh, I just saw a fantasy out in the distance, and it's not really there, and it makes me very sad, but it was a place I would want to go visit. Number 2, the synonym is fancy, but especially the free play of creative imagination. Just let your mind wander. Let it play. Your brain is on free play time. Fantasy. Number 3, a creation of the imaginative faculty, whether expressed or merely conceived. What does that mean? Creation of the imaginative. You have a faculty of imagination. It's a thing that your brain can do. Imagination. A thing that came from that mind, what it created, would be the fantasy. Okay, so whether it's expressed or merely conceived, whether you actually express it out in the real world, you do this thing that you thought up, or do you just keep it in your mind? Okay, so that's the main part. Now we got 3A, sub-definitions. A fanciful design or invention. Do you have an idea? An invention of a thing? I think everybody is like, why don't we have this thing? Why doesn't this exist? I've thought that many times. That would be a fantasy. 3B, a chimerical or fantastic notion. Chimerical is like a chimera, which is like it's like a thing that like shouldn't exist or is a weird thing that exists or something like that. Or just a fantastical notion is a fantasy. 3C, the synonym, is the number 1 definition for the word fantasia, which was at the end of the previous episode. 3D, imaginative fiction featuring especially strange settings and grotesque characters. And this is called also fantasy fiction. Fiction, yes. So, I think of fantasy stories. What was that movie with the Tom Cruise called? I cannot. It was a fantasy story with the fairies and the stuff. I mean, there's tons like Labyrinth and whatever. But why can't I not think of this one? I want to think of it. Please don't look it up. Just come up with it. Legend, a movie that I have not seen for many, many, many years, and I really want to see it again. Legend was a fantasy because it was fiction. Somebody made it up. It was imaginative, and it had strange settings, not what we're used to. And grotesque characters. Yes, grotesque could be so many things. Maybe the devil character in that would be considered grotesque. Number 4 for fantasy, the synonym is caprice, and I can't remember what that means, but we had capricious come up recently, and maybe I looked it up and I can't remember what it is. Number 5. Oh, this is a long one. The power or process of creating especially unrealistic or improbable mental images in response to psychological need, as in an object of fantasy. The power of process of creating especially unrealistic or improbable mental images in response to psychological need. Ooh, psychological need. Because your brain is processing in this one way, you make up stuff, right? You're making up stuff to deal with those things. I don't know. But we have more, actually. Also, a mental image or a series of mental images as a daydream, so created, So, when you are daydreaming, you're having little fantasies, you're maybe distracted, maybe you don't want to be in the situation, so your brain, your psychological situation is like, I'm just gonna think about this other stuff. I can't really help it. Just gonna wander. As in, we have an example for that one. Sexual fantasies. Maybe when you're bored at work, your brain just starts daydreaming about sexual fantasies. Depends on you and your brain and your situation. Yes, it's good that they put that in there, that example, because typically when people think of fantasy, one of the first things you think of is sexual fantasy. What is a thing that you can think in your mind that may or may not come to fruition, that may not ever be real, but you're like, ooh, well, that would be fun. Number 6, this is a coin usually not intended for circulation as currency. This is the problem with looking up and down, is that I miss the ways that the words go. A coin usually not intended for circulation as currency and often issued by a dubious authority as a government in exile. You can exile a government, I guess, and then sometimes they might make coins that you shouldn't be using in the situation where the government is not in exile. This one's interesting. A fantasy coin? I've never heard of this before. Maybe I'll put a link in the show notes for this fantasy coin. Ooh, it's not really real. It's fake. Whoa. Okay. It is now time for the word of the episode. Everybody's favorite time. Today we had fantasied, fantasize, fantasist, fantasize, phantasm, fantast, fantastic, fantastic, fantastically, fantastico, and fantasy. I want to pick fantastico as the word of the episode because I thought that definition was great. That was a fantastic definition and kind of silly. A ridiculously fantastic individual. I'm gonna say it. I'm a fantastico. I'm ridiculous and fantastic, and I'm an individual, and this is not a song. Fantastico, fantastico. You are a fantastico. Okay, that's enough of that. The next movie that I watched was Deadpool and Wolverine. We watched Deadpool and Wolverine, and it was very good and very fun and very referencey and lots of, multiverse stuff and so many references I didn't even know. It wasn't until later, after seeing the movie, people are talking about it, and I learned that all those Wolverines were very specific from comics, and I didn't know any of that stuff because I didn't read the comics. And Sharon hasn't seen all the Marvel movies, so there was a ton of stuff that she didn't get, but she still appreciated it and had a good time, and it's just fun no matter what. Fun and silly and heartwarming and sweet and everything. That's all I got to say for now. Thank you so much for checking out this fantastic podcast called The Dictionary. Come back next time when we're going to have some more fun with some more words. Fantastic words. This has been Spencer dispensing fantastic information. Thank you and goodbye. Yeah.